Welcome back to the Norse BenchWarmers podcast. I'm your host, Colton Smith, here joined by producer Josh Northcutt, co-host Ben Miller, and director Garrett Jordan. Fellas, we're here to talk about some college football. So let's just go ahead and get right into it by looking at the college football playoff rankings. Garrett or Josh, which one do you have that?
Garrett's got that one.
Garrett, what you got?
I do indeed have that one. So, rankings released last night. I'll run through the bracket, and then I will run through some of the notables that are ranked in that remaining top 25, and then I'll talk about who dropped out. For your Week 13 brackets, we have Oregon retaining that 1 seed, Texas in the 2 seed, 3 seed Miami, and 4 seed Boise State. They have jumped BYU for that 4th seed after BYU's loss this past weekend, which we'll talk about later. But those are your 4 bye seeds, so good on Boise for getting into that bye spot. But then your four seeded home matches, we have Ohio State will be playing BYU. That'll be the 5 seed Ohio State playing 12 seed BYU. I apologize. We'll have the number 8 seed Notre Dame playing the number 9 seed Alabama. We'll have the number 6 seed Penn State hosting the number 11 seed Georgia, and we'll have the number 7 seed Indiana hosting the number 10 seed Ole Miss. And all I can say is the narrative around this right now, and I'm also excited about, is seeing all these SEC teams going up north and playing in the cold in December. Oh, I'm excited for it.
I'm about to say, literally right now, it's just the Midwest is the takeover of the home games. That will likely change this weekend with the winner of Indiana, Ohio State, or I should say loser
of the
Indiana, Ohio State, maybe falling down below one of these SEC schools.
I'm sure it will,
But yeah, no, that excites me as well. I mean, it's snow. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw on Saturday, Tennessee was on the sidelines, 55 degrees with heaters.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Please send them to like Penn State.
Send them to the depths of Michigan some year and just see what they think.
I will say right now Tennessee is that first team out, so they might not even get a shot.
They might have dodged a bullet.
So Tennessee is your first team out. SMU is your second team out, and I still think the committee is disrespecting SMU a little bit, but we'll talk about it. As far as any other notable teams that are ranked in that sort of 15 through 25 area, Texas A&M is still hanging around. Had a bye week last week. Let's see. Clemson is still somewhat in control of their own destiny after that. After their victory over Pitt. We'll talk about it. Colorado, obviously, still hanging around in prime position to take control of the Big 12, honestly. This South Carolina team, ranked at 18, is still really pesky, and I'm excited to see how they play Clemson at the end of the season because I think that's going to be a really good game. Arizona State jumping up into the rankings after their victory over K-State at number 21. Let's see. Iowa State also back up into the rankings. UNLV up into the rankings for the second time this season, I believe. And Illinois clawing their way back into the rankings at 25. As far as teams that fell from the rankings after losses, we had Kansas State, Louisville, Washington State, and my beloved LSU Tigers all dropping out after losses.
So, Garrett, I know we don't like but do you see any issues as of right now, like major issues? Because I do see one. The committee has been very good at games mattering head-to-head.
Yeah.
And you should have knew where I was going with this.
I know exactly where you're going with this. What the hell are we doing with 13 and 14, guys?
Didn't BYU beat SMU at SMU? Aren't they both 9-1?
Yes.
I just want to double-check that I'm not hallucinating. Somehow, some way, I guess SMU's loss is still, I guess, better than BYU's, but they played head-to-head. They have the same record.
Right.
That would be my only complaint. Not that it matters because BYU is still winning their conference, quote unquote, and all that nonsense. And you know what? Maybe the committee fixes it, just like Colton talks about. Maybe next week, despite what happens this weekend, they're like, okay, BYU should be back above it. We messed up last week, kind of thing. None of this matters. It's obviously fun to talk about. The chaos is still to come the next 2 weeks, and especially the conference championships are going to be wild, which I gave you guys a heads up I was going to ask this question. We're 3 weeks away from conference championships, I believe, if I'm getting the days or weeks right. What do you think the committee is going to do to the Big Ten loser, the SEC loser, the ACC loser, and like the Big 12 loser?
All right.
How do you think that's going to turn about? Garrett, I'm going to hold you off, and I'm going to let Colton go first because I do think Colton wanted to say something.
Please.
And Colton doesn't get to talk a lot, so I want Colton to have his opinion heard.
Aw, Josh. I don't have a definitive answer for this. I know you gave me prep for it, but I just don't have a I don't.
What do you want? What do you want to see the committee to do?
I feel like even if you make it to that championship in the SEC, there is no reason, even if you lose, that you are knocked out. At this point, all SEC teams but Texas are 2-loss teams, right?
Correct.
So in a situation where Texas, then who would be next? Georgia or Alabama?
As of right now, it's Texas, Alabama.
So we get a Texas and Alabama game in the SEC championship. Let's say Texas wins that game. Does Alabama should they be knocked out for that? I don't think so. Is it possible? Yeah, because I mean they have 3 losses, and that brings you down to the ACC and the Big 12, because the ACC could be a game. More specifically, the ACC is where it gets interesting, because you have Miami, who is now a 1-loss team, SMU, who is a 1-loss team. So both these teams have had 1 loss. SMU against a BYU team that was that is currently 12th in the country and has led the Big 12 all year long. And then you have the Miami team who lost to that wasn't Louisville, it was Clemson. No,
which team? I'm sorry,
Miami.
Miami lost to Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech.
We called that. Come on.
That's my bad. Weeks go by and I lose it, but
Busy.
Yeah. So it's just I don't think the loser of that game should necessarily be kicked out, because their only other loss is to the conference champion. And I don't know. I would say probably I would lean to a 3-loss Alabama being kicked out as opposed to a 2-loss SMU or 2-loss Miami getting kicked out. But is the committee going to view it that way? And then you get to the Big Ten championship, which could get to be a IU and Ohio State game rematch. Or sorry, Penn State. I forgot they exist, as I typically do.
No, the Big Ten would, if the winner of Ohio State, Indiana will play Oregon.
Oregon. Pac-12.
Yep.
They're Pac-12
okay.
team to me still. It's going to take a couple years.
That's the question. If Oregon loses or beats Ohio State again, I mean, how far does Ohio State fall? Like, crap, if Ohio State loses this weekend, how far do they fall? The committee is not in a fun situation.
Yeah, it's impossible to tell, but I'll go ahead and get my Cheetos and let Garrett.
Say, Ben, do you have any thoughts on the matter?
To be honest with you, I really don't.
Okay, that's fine. What about you, Garrett? I'm assuming, since I threw it your way last night, you probably thought about it a little bit.
I gave it a little bit of thought. I think they're going to view I think the big question is around the SEC with all those gaggle of 2-loss SEC teams. What do you do with a team like Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia that gets to the SEC championship as a 2-loss team, and then loses in the championship and becomes a 3-loss team? How do you rank those above some of the other losing conference champions, I'd say? So like right now, I think a big one to watch is the Big 12. I'm really because right now the ACC really only has 3 schools, right? It's
correct.
Clemson has an outside shot, and then it's SMU and Miami. So I think what we're looking at with the ACC is probably going to be a 1-team league. I think whoever loses in that championship game is going to get left out, and it's just going to be the ACC champion in the bye week. For the Big 12, there's a couple scenarios, especially if BYU keeps losing, that the Big 12 could get really ugly. The SEC is already really ugly. The Big 10 is somewhat ugly, but you have a clear separation of the top 4 teams in the Big 12, where I think that, I mean, we'll talk about these matchups, but my general thinking is that the committee would lean more towards a 2-loss conference non-champion, I would say, than a 3-loss conference non-champion.
So one thing I would add there, I'm sorry, I got sarcastic and started eating Cheetos. So
Yes.
food in my mouth. My question is, how is that fair to give a conference champion who played an extra game? How is that fair to kick them out as opposed to the other SEC teams that only have 2 losses but didn't play that extra game against the 1-loss Texas in this situation?
This is a scary. Sorry to cut you off, Garrett. This is where it gets scary, because this is what the committee is almost going to be in a situation. Conference championships don't matter unless it's for the 1-4 seed. If you play in and you lose, you just don't lose ground, and then the game doesn't matter. So if you're a team like Ohio State or you're a team like Oregon and you're like, screw it, I'll just settle for the 5 seed, Why play that?
Exactly
Why
what I
play
was
that
about to
game
say.
and then just bench your players and get an extra week of rest and keep everybody healthy because you're playing for a national championship? The Big Ten championship doesn't mean anything anymore. It is a very, very sticky situation that the committee's about to put themselves in. Go ahead, Garrett.
Here's my opinion on the whole conference championship things. I think with the introduction of the college football playoff, I think that conference championship games have decreased in magnitude as far as their importance, and I want to bring that back because originally conference championships were supposed to be a privilege for the two teams at the top of their conferences to play each other and determine who was the best, right? So what I think, I lost my train of thought. I have no idea where I'm going with this.
You're good. I'm going to say
I think okay. Here we go. So I think conference championships need to matter more, and I think the committee needs to understand that playing in conference championships game is a privilege, and teams need to understand that this is still another game on their schedule. You played the best, or you played good enough to where you got to the end of the season. You were one of the best teams. Now we want to see if you're better than the other quote unquote best team in your conference. And I think if you lose that game and you've lost other games in the regular season, then no, I don't think you deserve to be in the 12-team playoff.
All right, and I will wrap everything up with this before we move on. Basically, what the committee has told us so far is, like you said, one Big 12 team is going to get in.
Right.
They've put BYU down to 14. That basically is summed up. BYU, Colorado winner. If it plays out that way, we'll get in.
We'll see.
The ACC is tempting and floating around because if Miami and SMU play each other and SMU were to beat Miami, Miami could steal that spot, pending how far they fall.
Well,
Dominoes fall into effect.
Given how far they've already fallen,
Miami's only 8 though, and if they lose to a 13th ranked or 12th ranked SMU team, it may not look as bad. So you could maybe get 2 ACC teams if it's one of those 2 teams. The Big Ten is probably going to get those 4 teams in. The question will be how bad if Indiana loses this weekend. How bad is it? They got to keep it close. Because their strength of schedule is really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
And then the SEC will kind of get a little bit figured out after Texas A&M next week. If Texas beats Texas A&M. Now, if Texas A&M beats Texas,
I don't even want to think about it.
Holy
I don't
hell,
even want to think
you're
about
going to
it.
have a 2-loss Texas team, Texas A&M team, Georgia team, Tennessee team, Bama team, and Ole Miss team. I don't even know. I think it would be Texas A&M, Alabama would be the SEC championship, but I think maybe because Texas – I don't know how that all works. I just know as of right now, it's Texas, Bama, if Texas beats Texas A&M. That being said, we'll wrap this up and we'll start recapping the 6-pack recap. Go ahead, Colton.
All right, so we had quite the 6-pack slate of games last week. That's the word I'm looking for. I started off with Colorado beating Utah 49-24. Me and Garrett's underdog pick there did not work out. Clemson over Pitt 24-20. And then South Carolina. You talked about them potentially being the best team in the SEC earlier, beating Missouri 34-30. I think keeping the game that close alone kind of disqualifies them from that conversation, but what have you. Arizona State over Kansas State 24-14. That's a big upset that knocks Kansas State out of Big 12 contention. And then Georgia over Tennessee 31-17. That was after Tennessee led 10-0 to start the game. And Georgia was like, wait a minute, we're not doing this again, and went out and won the game. So you want to start at Colorado over Utah and go right ahead.
Yeah, so Utah comes into Boulder to play Colorado, and I was really hoping that this defense would be able to stop, or at least hold off Shedeur and Travis Hunter for a little bit, but unfortunately, I was wrong. Shedeur and Travis are just too good for Big 12 defenses. And Utah doesn't have an offense to compete with them, basically. I mean, Shedeur Sanders, 30 of 41, 340 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's a great stat line from that game, going up against the number 1 defense in the conference. Isaac Wilson had some struggles, 236 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So turnovers were a really big key here, and I think Colorado really amped it up with the turnovers because I think they really wanted to run up the score and show that, they're the number 1 defense, but we don't care. So this was an all-around and very impressive performance by Colorado. And right now, after BYU's loss, I can't say that they don't look like the favorite to win the Big 12 at this point.
I'm going to say they by far are the favorite to win the Big 12. I know you mentioned Travis Hunter, but he kind of did have a quiet game, and they made note of it afterwards. Shador and him were joking post-game. He's not going to buy me a onesie this week or something like that.
Yeah.
Travis had 5 catches for 55 yards, but he did have an interception, and he ran in a touchdown. Dion kind of admitted it was the kind of boost the Heisman thing.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd time this year, though, he has scored a touchdown and had an interception. The wide receiver who balled out, though, was Will Shepard. 5 catches, 71 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then there was another wide receiver who had 10 catches. His name's slipping my mind right now.
LeJontay Wester.
Thank you. And he also had a punt return. That's the thing about this Colorado team, man. They have formed a weapon and a trio of wide receivers. They are a very, very scary team. And if I'm one of these Big Ten teams and or Notre Dame who are going to have to host this Colorado team, I'm not feeling confident because they're going to be able to sling it. Right. And it's not like they're not used to the cold. Boulder's cold.
Yep.
So it will be very interesting to see what happens. You guys got any thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's very seldom you have a wide receiver trio like that paired with a top-tier quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, and that's really all you need to get that offensive flowing and be in just about any game you're looking to play.
Yeah, I mean, overall, though, what a dominating performance by Colorado, though. I mean, that offense, though, with Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and that receiving core, they definitely showed up, though. But overall, though, Colorado, they're a complete team, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what they have in store for the rest of the season, though, because I feel like they deserve to be in the college football playoff.
I have been incredibly impressed with the growth of this Colorado defense. That is not something that I expected to see coming into this season. I expected this defense to be awful, and they would be kind of like a one-trick pony where it's like they're going to have to score 40 points to win every single game. But this defense has absolutely come into its own. 4 sacks and 9 tackles for losses against that Utah front. I mean, that is impressive, bar none, considering where we all thought Colorado's defense was going to look at this point in the season at the very beginning. So I just have to commend them for that. Another thing I have to commend is Draylon Miller stepping up in place of the injured Jimmy Horn.
Yeah, I mean, that whole receiving crew is unbelievable.
Right.
But moving on, Clemson Pitt. Pitt's late rally falls short as Cade Klubnik takes it 50 yards to the house with a minute 16 left. That is something I did not think I'd be reading on a bingo card this year in college football. That's not what Cade's known for. But Dabo kind of drew it up, he said, and this and that and blah, blah, blah. Clemson keeps their outside shot alive, basically buries Pitt. Antonio Williams for Clemson had a breakout game, 13 receptions, 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. And backup Nate Yarnell for Pittsburgh, not a bad game, 34-54, 350 yards, a touchdown, but had an interception. Clemson's hopes are still alive, but it's kind of a long shot unless Miami or SMU slip up. Good,
yeah,
bro.
I mean, that Cade Klubnik run literally saved their season. I mean, by all means, Pitt should have won this game. Look, I mean, just looking at the stat sheet, they held Phil Maffa to 17 rushing yards on 17 carries. This guy is supposed to be one of the most dominant rushers in the ACC, and he looked like a non-threat against Pitt, which is very tough to do. This is I can't. Pitt should have won this game.
Fair enough. Next game, Garrett?
Moving on, we have the South Carolina Gamecocks and the Missouri Tigers, with South Carolina escaping with a 34-30 win over a Missouri Tigers team that actually played very well and better than I expected them to. But South Carolina right now looks like one of the best teams in the SEC the way they're playing. Lenoris Sellers in this game, 21-30, 353 yards and 5 touchdowns accounted for. I mean, he is balling out right now, and he is still young. He is a very young quarterback.
He's a freshman.
He's a freshman for South Carolina. This is this next year's South Carolina team might be very dangerous because I think this whole team is young as well.
I'm gonna say my question becomes, and it's just what it is in 2024/2025 coming up, is what big school throws money to him? I mean.
Talking about Shane Beamer?
No, not Beamer.
Sellers?
Yeah, Sellers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I mean, he's had a breakout year. This is as good as what we thought he would be. He was one of the top prospects coming out of high school, but it's still one of those things like money's going to talk, and Georgia might need another quarterback if Beck goes pro. Oregon, I mean, can you imagine him in Oregon system? It's just one of those things where does South Carolina have enough money? And then as you mentioned, I mean, Beamer might get some offers, specifically one that is near and dear to his heart.
We talked about it.
As we have.
Yeah.
So.
But no, I mean, this was just, hell of a fourth quarter in this game. I mean, this was back and forth all up until the very end of this game when South Carolina took the lead. I mean, this was a very entertaining game to watch if you watched it. Unfortunately, I was watching LSU suck, so I didn't get to watch this game.
I actually did, and the fact he not only did he throw 5 touchdowns, guys, he threw it to 5 different players.
Yeah,
spreading the ball out like this. This kid is good. I am telling you, like he is Heisman contender next year. Good. He will be getting some money from my wallet. But yeah, maybe he likes Ann Arbor.
Yeah,
I was waiting for you.
It'll be interesting. Yeah. Just imagine though if he ends up in Ann Arbor.
Yeah. I mean, we've got $4 million or $10 million over the next 3 years to spend on a quarterback. No, just saying.
But yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch this game though. But it was like doing research last night though. I was impressed with Sellers though. He played really well though. He made explosive plays, and you said he threw to 5 different receivers.
5 different receivers.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's when I heard that though. That was absolutely impressive. So, yeah, Sellers, he's playing like a veteran.
He's darn good. Moving on to another game, ASU over K-State, as we mentioned. Cam Scatterbo was back. However, it was Sam Levitt of Arizona in the defense show. Sam was 21 of 34 for 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Arizona State won the turnover battle 3-1. That does not happen at Kansas State. Very impressive win for the Arizona State. And then also their wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, 12 catches, 176 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Have yourself a day, kid. And then last but not least, Arizona State got out to a 24-0 lead.
Ouch.
Yeah, that game wasn't close from the beginning to end. It was just complete dominant force by Arizona State. And maybe, could they pull an upset this weekend? That's a question.
Oh, that is a question. They could do it. Yeah. Obviously, I didn't get to watch this game too much. Again, LSU held my attention, unfortunately. What I'm seeing from this stat sheet is that Avery Johnson is still inconsistent at the quarterback position. He's still young. He's still a sophomore. This is definitely going to be a learning, teachable moment for him. But I mean, we saw it against we saw it when the Wildcats played Houston, where it was just he didn't look great, and they ended up losing that game. So Kansas State, I will need you to stick with him because I think he's going to be really good. He's just inconsistent right now. He needs a little bit more time and he needs a little bit more game time to be able to iron out some of those mistakes that he's making. But this Kansas State team is going to be good. However, this Arizona State team I want to commend because nobody has really paid attention to them, and they've quietly gone to 8-2 in the conference. And this might be a bold take, but I think they'll be playing in the Big 12 Conference Championship.
Fair enough.
So now we know who Garrett's picking on
we
this.
do. And then last but not least, we had Georgia over Tennessee. As Colton mentioned earlier, Georgia trailed 10-0 after the first. Carson Beck started the game 3 of 9. He then proceeded to go 23 of 31 with 2 touchdowns to Oscar Delp in the final 3 quarters, plus a rushing touchdown. Nico was just kind of a game manager. It was like Tennessee didn't let him go do his thing. Kind of disappointing. I expected a little bit more, but I also kind of did say Georgia would win by 3 or 4 scores, but it was only 2. So any thoughts on that game, gentlemen?
Overall, though, what a great performance by Georgia, especially with them fighting for their college football playoff hopes after their defeat last week against Ole Miss. I mean, defense, they showed up big, especially in the second half. They didn't even allow Tennessee to get in the end zone, not allowing one single point. I thought that was really impressive. But it was kind of shocking in a way to hear that stat that they didn't score in the second half because Tennessee, they've been a pretty good offense this year under the leadership of Nico. But, the fact that Georgia defense showed up big with Nico, they held Nico to 167 yards and 0 touchdowns. That's saying something right there.
Yeah, if there's any 2-win team that needs to be shafted, though, it's got to be Tennessee, referring to the SEC, of course. And I just don't think this team, they got a lucky win against Alabama, where Alabama had probably their worst game of the season, especially offensively, and they were able to sneak that win in. But outside of that, I don't really see why this team is considered a playoff team other than their brand and how they started out in the rankings early on in the year. Don't get me wrong, it's a great defense. They have some great players on that team, but I just don't see it, especially if you have your freshman quarterback essentially being a game manager. Nah, I think this Tennessee team definitely is great. They deserve to be in a New Year's Six bowl game or what have you, but not the college football playoff.
Right.
Any final thoughts,
Yeah,
Garrett?
I'd probably agree with that statement. I'd say the silver lining for Tennessee is Dylan Sampson continued to produce 19 carries, 101 yards, and a touchdown. That's getting 100 yards against the Georgia Bulldogs is tough. Oscar Delp, granted it was only one game, but he kind of reminded me of the Brock Bowers of Georgia. That's just a very strong tight end, do it all tight end for them. So it'll be interesting to see how he finishes out the season. The only other thing I want to mention, this Georgia defense was stout, 5 sacks and 6 tackles for losses against that Tennessee offense. So Kirby Smart, I think, has these Bulldogs right where he wants them.
Fair enough. And then for the best of the rest, does anybody have other games they want to throw out there before I go into my spiel?
Go ahead, Garrett.
Well, I wanted to talk about my Hail Mary pick, Kansas Jayhawks upsetting the BYU Cougars. It was a bit of a weird game.
Snooze fest.
Huh?
Snooze fest.
Yeah, you could call it snooze fest. At the very end, BYU basically lost on a muffed punt that Kansas recovered and immediately punched in for a touchdown, and then BYU couldn't get anything going on offense. So I think this Kansas team is going to be a very pesky team for these last couple weeks of the season, but that's all I got for them.
Yeah, kind of living up to what they expected. BYU did not have it pretty much throughout the game. I thought maybe they'd start making a run there in the second half, but it was an electric crowd when they did get some stuff going, but just didn't have it. And the announcers said it best. It almost felt like maybe the luck ran out. It really did. Just did not have that, and that's been a lot of their wins have come down to final possessions and luck. So it was interesting to see it happen on their home field where the luck somewhat ran out.
Yeah, a lot of Utah fans still think they won that holy war.
I'm going to say other games of note. Colorado State is still holding the driver's seat to play Boise State in the Mountain West Championship after a 24-10 Wyoming win. Or a win over Wyoming, yes. Colorado State's only losses have been inside or out of conference. Inside the Mountain West, they are undefeated. So keep an eye on them because I know Garrett was kind of high on them in the beginning of the year. So that could be a team that could keep Boise State out of the.
I definitely like their quarterback, Fowler Nicolosi out there. I think he's got the right mindset as a quarterback.
Yeah. Speaking of Boise State, 42-21 victory over San Jose State. Ashton Genty, 32 carries, 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. Go ahead, Colton, say the famous words for us.
Heisman.
Continuing on in the Mountain West. Go ahead.
I do want to point out that San Jose State had a lead and a big lead in this game early. I mean, they jumped out to an early lead, and Boise State had to come back. So
shout out Frank Chalk. I had him as my running back on NCAA football. He was literally the Ashton Genty of the season. He had 250. I think.
Also staying out there in the Mountain West, by the way, New Mexico, and the coolest name of head coach is Bronco Mendenhall, upset Wazoo to end their hopes of the college football playoff. 38-35 victory after trailing 28-14 at half. Devin Dampier went 11-25, 174 yards and a touchdown passing. However, he ran the ball 28 times, 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. However, Garrett's guy, John Mateer, right? Mateer?
Yeah, John Mateer.
Had a very solid game, 25-36, 375 yards, 4 touchdowns, plus 9 carries, 65 yards, 1 touchdown. That kid will not be playing at Wazoo next year.
It's starting to look like Wazoo might be the transfer portal feeder team, where we're just going to see a bunch of stars appear at Wazoo, and then they're going to transfer away from Wazoo to go to a better program. But yeah, this was a crazy game, and it's so funny that immediately after we give Wazoo props, they go and lose. So
yeah, and then Tulane knocked out my Hail Mary pick, Navy 35-0, but we're not going to talk about that. So go ahead, Ben, you got one more game to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm going to the number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks taking on the Wisconsin Badgers in Madison. This game was absolutely tight, though. I mean, overall, though, I was impressed with Wisconsin's defense, though. They held Oregon to field goals. They did not even allow one single touchdown. They even jumped out to a 13-6 lead, though. So the Ducks, man, they were in trouble the beginning of the game. But they held on, though. I mean, overall, though, what a great defensive game, though. They were able to win it by a field goal, though. So, yeah, what a great game.
All right. Yeah, I mean, my main one I wanted to talk about was BYU and Kansas. So let's go ahead and get to the six-pack picks for this week. Go right ahead, Garrett.
I have one more game I want to mention. One more game, and I'll make it quick. Louisville and Stanford. I don't know what the hell happened in the last 20 seconds of that game, Louisville, but it needs to be investigated because that was a crime. You have the ball in plus territory with 20 seconds left, and you lose on a walk-off field goal to Stanford. Ooh,
Not
bad.
good.
20 yards of penalties will play a role in that in the last second.
Yes, they will.
Takes talent. takes some talent, you know. Jeff Brom, if you want to come back to Purdue, we'll welcome you back. With
What happened to Matt
arms.
Campbell?
Yeah, Matt Campbell.
I'm sure he's got bigger plans.
I still think Purdue would be a better job than Iowa State, but that's just me.
Well, he's but look at the team he's got right now. I mean, why not stay another
that
year?
Because the transfer portal,
Okay.
they all can leave. It literally, you know that rule, right? In college football.
Yes, I know how the transfer portal works. Jeez.
I just know. Like if your coach leaves, you are allowed to leave and not sit out a year.
Yeah.
That rule isn't changing. That's the one rule they're keeping with the portal.
Okay.
So they can all follow him to Purdue.
God, I hope so. Come on, you know better.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm a
Rocco
little down
Bear.
because of what happened last night against Marquette. But
Yes, sir.
we'll move along to the six-pack picks as I tried to 3 minutes ago. We have Indiana at Ohio State at noon on Fox. It's the big noon game that still nobody wants to watch it at noon. Can we please just get a 7:30 Big Ten game? The SEC is killing you.
Exactly.
I've had this problem with Fox with NASCAR for a long time, so they have no idea like what a good time is to schedule a sporting event.
Well, you saw the explanation, right?
I don't think there's any explanation. needed.
Fox. So Big Ten is on 3 different channels. Fox gets the noon game, CBS gets the 3:30 game, and NBC gets the 7
So then why does Fox get the best game?
because they paid the most money.
Well, they shouldn't get the best game if they're going to have it at noon.
Yeah.
Anyways, I have essentially pretty much alluded to this throughout the season. I have Indiana headed into the horseshoe and upsetting Ohio State, knocking off the Buckeyes. They're going to do it. I see it happening. Sig, I believe in you. I'm not even an IU fan. I'm wearing the red, though, so I guess maybe now I am. This feels terrible. Yeah, give me the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine, though. First time since 1986 they pull off a win over Ohio State. But overall, though, I feel like this is
At home or just in general?
I believe in general, yeah.
Probably in general, but
Yeah.
that just is crazy.
Yeah, but overall, though, I'm really looking forward to this matchup, though. I mean, you got 2 great offenses going at it. I mean, Indiana, they've arguably been one of the best offenses in the Big Ten, though, but they're going to be going up against a really tough Ohio State defense. I mean, I feel like this game, it's going to be close, though, but I have a feeling Ohio State, their defense is going to make a play late, so give me the Buckeyes at the horseshoe.
The Buckeyes lost their starting center this week. Keep an eye on that. That is huge. The kid from Alabama transfer apparently tore his ACL yesterday. However, that being said, it's Ohio State. It's at home. Ohio State by at least 3 scores.
3 scores, okay.
Well, Colton,
Yes.
I'm getting in the passenger seat of your car.
Welcome.
I am riding with Indiana. I love this team. Since about week 6, I've thought that the Indiana Hoosiers could upset the Ohio State Buckeyes, and I thought that Indiana would be playing Oregon in the Big 12 Conference Championship. This is a very great team. Coach Sig has these boys playing well. Their strength of schedule is obviously the one thing that everybody's going to point at, but they've been blowing everyone out by 50 points. So give me Indiana to get the upset in Columbus.
The land of corn will reign supreme again.
Yes, it will.
I think the real test of how this game's going to go is how many times they name off that 1968 stat. If you start seeing it a lot, you already know the Hoosiers have that win.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on down, or still at the noon time, though. Ole Miss and Florida on ABC. Like I said, kickoff at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to go ahead and take Ole Miss. This team is fighting. Florida's definitely looked better in recent weeks. Do not get me wrong, especially last week, Garrett. And give me Ole Miss though, because they are playing for their playoff live.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with Ole Miss as well. I mean, just like you said, Colton, though, they're playing for their playoff lives, though. But Florida, though, they look better the last couple of weeks. So I mean, they're used to these type of games. I mean, they went up against Georgia, gave them a challenge. They went up against Tennessee, gave them a challenge, and even at LSU. I'm sorry, Garrett, but yeah, overall, I think Ole Miss, they're going to make a play late. So give me the Rebels.
For 13 weeks, I've been riding the train. I'm not getting off of it. It's Ole Miss.
All right.
Woo, woo! But I'm telling you, it's going to be close.
As much as I want to save the graphic, I can't, and I don't think it's going to be close. Actually, I think Ole Miss will win by 2 scores.
All right. All right, so we're putting spreads in here now. I didn't realize that was a part of the process. Josh's influence reigns too heavy on this show. But anyways, moving down to the third game, we got BYU at Arizona State, a game we alluded to. Indiana Ohio State's a huge game. This is just as huge for the Big 12, and that is at 3:30 on ESPN. I like the vibes with Arizona State. I think the luck ran out for BYU, and I think Arizona State is going to kind of be a rude awakening for this Cougar team. So give me the Sun Devils at home in Tempe. Yeah.
For myself, I'm actually going with BYU. I mean, this is another team that is competing for their college football lives, so I feel like they're going to show up big, so give me BYU.
Said it best. Luck ran out last week. Arizona State's very, very hot. They're at home. Expect a big game from
being hot is a very nice play on words there, sir.
And I expect Bo to have a big game, so give me Arizona State.
Yeah, no, Kenny Dillingham is going to have his boys ready to play against BYU this week. Obviously, we've seen the struggles that BYU has had, and we've seen the consistency in this Arizona State attack on offense. Scattaboo will probably run for 50 to 100 yards, maybe more. And again, the luck has run out for BYU. And I already said I have Arizona in the Big 12 championship. Arizona State.
Mm-hmm. Big difference there between the two programs. Let's go ahead. Staying out west, maybe a little more west than Arizona. We have Stanford at California.
Classic ACC rivalry right there, my friend.
Yeah, big old ACC
The band
rivalry.
is on the field, and everything is all ACC now.
If not for saying ACC Network, I may have said this was a Pac-12 matchup, but we have that kicking off on ACC Network at 3:30. These have been two kind of interesting teams that have showed up at random points of the year against quality opponents. Especially Cal, honestly, probably should have beat Miami if not for that second half. I don't really know where to go here, but I'm just going to ride with Cal. They're at home. They seem to have the better track record, the more consistent record, and give me the Bears.
Yeah, I'm going with California as well. I feel like their secondary matches up well with Stanford's pass offense. I feel like Stanford's defense will not be enough, so give me California.
I'm just going to go ahead and go Stanford just to save the graphic, and just because, you know what, why not Stanford?
All right, here's my reasoning for why I'm picking Cal. These two teams have both played NC State without Grayson McCall. Cal lost 24-23. Stanford lost 59-28. Give me Cal.
That's actually an outstanding reason as to why. You sure you want to save that graphic?
No, rivalry games don't matter, baby.
Okay, all right. Well, the rivalry game is being played at Cal, but let's go ahead to the game I have been waiting weeks upon weeks for. We have undefeated Army heading in to South Bend to face off against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. The Fighting Irish have one loss to NIU that apparently never happened. Allegedly it happened. The committee doesn't seem to think so. But that kicks off at 7 p.m. NBC/Peacock. You don't have to put that on there. I hate that program. But
I do it just for you.
once again, you don't understand the amount of anger that goes.
Oh no, we can see. We can see.
Anyways, if you pick Notre Dame, you just simply don't love your country. Give me Army, hoorah!
All right. I'm really looking forward to this matchup, though. I mean, these are both teams that play that'll match up really well against each other, though. They're complete on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, though. But I feel like the key to this game, though, is which defense will get the most stops and which one will have a mishap late in the game. So overall, though, I feel like this is going to be a really low-scoring game. But I feel like Notre Dame, they're at home in South Bend. I think they pull it off. Give me Notre Dame.
So you don't like your country?
Oh, I don't.
That's what I said. I said if you don't pick Notre Dame.
All right, well, I'm going to tell you now, I'm also taking Notre Dame. One, because I was in the Marine Corps. Go Navy, beat Army. And then
he has a fair reason.
And then two, Riley Leonard. Go ahead, Garrett.
Yeah, here's the thing with me. I think Bryson Daly actually matches up pretty well with Riley Leonard in terms of their running capabilities. However, the difference is that Army does not have a Jeremiah Love foil. And I think Jeremiah Love is going to be the big difference in this game, and I think Notre Dame gets the win. But I hope it's entertaining. I want to see Army actually play Notre Dame very well.
Only one that loves our country here. Nice lighting over there, Garrett. by the way.
Yeah, I got this little window right behind us, and the sun was just creeping through there.
Inside
Hey,
the
did you
peek-through
know
and
a guy who served this country and gave up 4 years of his life, didn't love this country? Really? You want to go there?
Nah,
Yeah.
sarcasm. Sarcasm.
Just because I did it from behind a desk doesn't mean I don't love my country.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our Hail Mary picks. I'll let you fellas kick it off, if you will.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go first so I can make sure mine don't get stolen.
Mine don't get stoned.
Yeah, this Arizona TCU spread does not make any sense to me. So give me Arizona with Fafidi and McMillan to upset TCU. 11.5 just seems way too big, right, Garrett?
No, TCU has had a fairly good high-powered offense throughout most of the season, so I wouldn't say it's like out of reach per se, but it's definitely big. I think it'd be bigger than I expect it to be a little bit. But
All right, fair enough.
For myself, I'm going with Western Kentucky over the Liberty Flames. I feel like they're gonna go in and they're gonna get the dub. So give me the Hilltoppers.
Fair enough. Garrett?
oh, now it's me, of course.
Yeah, Colton's still looking at this. So.
Yep.
I have the game that I've picked is, of course, I'm going back to Friday night because Friday night just seems to be the best night in football this year. The San Jose State Spartans will host the number 24 UNLV Rebels, and this is a very, very underrated San Jose State team. I mean, they were up on Boise State, I believe, like 21-0 at one point. And this team just plays very pesky. Nick Nash at receiver, Frank Chalk running back. I mean, these guys are going to play really well. I have them upsetting UNLV.
All right, so I'm just going to be the homer that goes for the Purdue Boilermakers finally getting their first win of the season. Please, 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 in conference play, or just against a non-FCS opponent. 13.5 spread to be a nice little point get. You never know; it could happen. Maybe no, it's not gonna happen.
I won't lie. I looked at it because they're Michigan State, right?
Michigan State.
Little brother's not good. They're not as good as what everybody thought. So
Not
yeah,
the best team.
I don't hate that. Maybe y'all can finally get one.
Maybe we'll at least keep it close. So I have hope. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to leave a like, hit the subscribe button. We're looking to hit 50 subscribers. Once we do, we'll be giving away a $50 Fanatics gift card. Feel free to subscribe afterwards because as long as we haven't given away, you can still be a part of that giveaway. But for now, thank you all for coming on to the show. Thank you, Garrett, for all that you do in the director's chair. Thank you, Bill and NKU Media Services, for making this show better each and every week. Shout out Mr. Potato Man and all the hard work he does getting the messages out there on the board.
Hi, Gabe.
And hey, Gabe, what's up? And yeah, we'll see you all in the next one. Oh, listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you don't want to watch us necessarily, or you don't have the time to, and you can just listen in the car or at work. But for now, this is Norse BenchWarmers. We'll see you all in the next one. Peace.